The mirror of abundance, often whispered about as the forbidden ritual within the teachings inspired by Florence Scovel Shinn, is not forbidden because it is dark or dangerous, but because it confronts the ego, dissolves inherited limitations, and exposes the silent agreements people make with lack, fear, and unworthiness. And this confrontation is uncomfortable for a world conditioned to struggle. At its core, the mirror of abundance is the understanding that life reflects back to you with mathematical precision the images, assumptions, words, and emotional certainties you consistently hold about yourself and reality. And Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the subconscious mind is the womb of manifestation, responding not to wishes or desperation, but to calm, unwavering knowing. And when one stands before the inner mirror and deliberately changes the image through spoken word, feeling, and faith, the outer world must reorganize to match it. For the universe, as she emphasized, is not moved by force, but by alignment. The ritual aspect begins with stillness, because stillness silences the mental chatter that argues for limitation, and in that stillness one observes the patterns of thought that have been unconsciously rehearsed for years. Phrases like, "money is hard to get," "success is for others," or "I must struggle to deserve." And Shinn insisted that these are not harmless thoughts, but binding contracts spoken into law through repetition. So the first act of the ritual is renunciation, the conscious withdrawal of belief from lack, spoken aloud with authority, because the spoken word, according to her, carries creative power that silent thought does not fully activate. One then replaces these contracts with declarations of divine supply, such as affirming that infinite intelligence is the source of all abundance, and that supply flows through expected and unexpected channels, not as a hopeful statement, but as a present fact. And here the mirror begins to change, because the subconscious accepts what is stated with conviction and emotional neutrality far more readily than what is begged for. Shinn warned that emotion mixed with fear cancels manifestation, while emotion mixed with joy accelerates it. So the practitioner learns to speak abundance as calmly as stating their own name, and this calm authority is what makes the ritual feel forbidden to a culture addicted to effort and anxiety. As days pass, the mirror reflects resistance in the form of old circumstances flaring up, unexpected bills, doubts, delays. And Shinn described this not as failure, but as the last stand of old beliefs dissolving, urging students to persist without reacting, because reaction reaffirms the old image, while non-reaction starves it. The ritual deepens when one practices seeing abundance everywhere, not as money alone, but as order, beauty, timing, protection, and opportunity, training the mind to recognize evidence of supply already present, which expands the subconscious expectation of more. And this expectation is the magnetic force that draws new conditions. The forbidden nature of the ritual lies also in its insistence on self-responsibility, because Shinn taught that no person, economy, or circumstance has power over your supply except your own consciousness of it, a truth that dismantles victimhood and therefore is rarely taught plainly. She often spoke of divine law as impartial, responding equally to constructive and destructive words, which means careless speech about lack can undo years of effort, making vigilance of language a sacred discipline within the ritual. The mirror becomes clearer as forgiveness is practiced, because resentment, she said, blocks supply by tying energy to the past, and forgiveness is not approval of wrongdoing, but release of energetic debt, freeing the channel through which abundance flows. Another hidden layer of the ritual is obedience to intuition, which Shinn called divine guidance, where sudden impulses to act, give, rest, or speak are followed without rational delay, because these impulses are often the unseen bridges leading to manifestation, and ignoring them fractures the mirror. As the practitioner aligns words, thoughts, and actions, coincidences increase, help appears, and resources arrive in ways the rational mind could not predict, reinforcing faith, which in turn strengthens the mirror's image. Shinn emphasized that true abundance is never hoarded, but circulates, so generosity becomes a natural expression rather than a forced tactic, and giving from a place of trust signals to the subconscious that supply is secure, further amplifying flow. The ritual also demands identity transformation, as one must stop seeing themselves as someone trying to become abundant and instead assume the identity of one who already lives under divine provision, because manifestation follows identity, not desire. This identity shift may alienate others, triggering criticism or misunderstanding, which is why the ritual is rarely encouraged openly. Yet Shinn reassured that social disapproval is often a sign of alignment with higher law rather than collective fear. As the mirror stabilizes, challenges no longer provoke panic, but clarity, because the practitioner understands that appearances are temporary reflections adjusting to a new image, and patience becomes effortless. The culmination of the mirror of abundance is not constant wealth accumulation, but inner certainty, a knowing that supply is inexhaustible and responsive. From this knowing arises peace, creativity, and service. Florence Scovel Shinn's so-called forbidden ritual is ultimately a return to spiritual authority, where the individual recognizes themselves as a conscious co-creator with divine intelligence, speaking life into form, trusting unseen laws, and allowing abundance to express naturally through a mind purified of fear, a tongue disciplined in truth, and a heart anchored in faith. And when this alignment is maintained, the mirror never lies, for it reflects not wishful thinking, but the unwavering image of divine order impressed upon it, an image that once accepted must appear as health, prosperity, harmony, and joy in the world of form.